Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another explosive update on the escalating conflict in the Middle East. Last night, the skies over Israel were torn apart by a storm of fire unlike anything seen before. In a bold and devastating strike, Iran unleashed 50 hypersonic Fattah-2 missiles, the unstoppable monsters, capable of reaching speeds up to Mach 15, directly targeting the very heart of Israeli democracy, the Knesset, Israel's parliament. These were not ordinary ballistic missiles. These were Iran's most advanced hypersonic glide vehicles designed to maneuver at extreme velocities, evading even the most sophisticated air defense systems. Launched from deep underground silos in the mountains of Iran, the 50 Fattah-2s sliced through the night like blazing arrows of vengeance. Within minutes, the unthinkable happened. Multiple warheads slammed into the vicinity of the government complex. Explosions lit up the skyline as massive fireballs erupted across Tel Aviv and surrounding areas. The once proud symbol of Israeli political power is now engulfed in flames and chaos. Reports are flooding in of heavy smoke rising over Jerusalem, emergency sirens blaring nonstop, and panicked lawmakers rushing into underground bunkers as the parliament session descended into total disarray. But that's not all. As the Fattah-2s overwhelmed Israeli defenses, American-supplied systems, Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow, and even U.S. naval assets in the Mediterranean were pushed to their absolute breaking point. For the first time in this war, the so-called invincible multi-layered shield appeared to run struggling, failing, and unable to stop the hypersonic onslaught. Tel Aviv is burning. The political nerve center of Israel has been struck, and the world is watching in shock as America's much-vaunted defenses are exposed like never before. How did Iran manage to penetrate the Iron Curtain? What does this direct hit on the Knesset mean for the future of the conflict? And what does this mean for the future of this dangerous conflict between Iran, Israel, and the United States? Stay with us as we break down every terrifying detail of this historic strike, the technology behind the Fattah-2, and the shocking strategic implications that could reshape the entire Middle East. This is the moment the balance of power began to shift dramatically. If you're watching this, hit like and subscribe now so you don't miss any updates. While the world was still trying to process the scale of the ongoing conflict, Iran quietly prepared its most sophisticated response yet. Deep beneath the rugged mountain ranges of central and western Iran, hidden in a vast network of fortified underground facilities built over decades, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps initiated the launch sequence for a new generation of terror from the skies. At precisely the calculated moment, 50 Fattah-2 hypersonic missiles roared to life. These were not standard ballistic weapons. The Fattah-2 represents Iran's leap into the elite club of hypersonic glide vehicle technology. Each missile measures roughly 12 meters in length and weighs around 4,000 to 4,500 kilograms. It features a two-stage design, a solid fuel booster for the initial powerful ascent, followed by a liquid-fueled hypersonic glide vehicle that detaches and begins its deadly atmospheric journey. What makes the Fattah-2 truly terrifying is its claimed performance. Iranian military sources state that the glide vehicle can sustain speeds of up to Mach 15, approximately 18,500 kilometers per hour, or more than 5 kilometers every single second. At such velocities, the missile's outer skin experiences temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Celsius, requiring advanced heat-resistant composite materials and precise aerodynamic control. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles that follow a predictable high-arcing trajectory, the Fattah-2's glide vehicle can perform sharp maneuvers in both pitch and yaw while flying inside the atmosphere at altitudes between 12 and 30 kilometers. This skip glide capability allows it to change direction unpredictably, approach targets from unexpected angles, and significantly complicate interception calculations for enemy radar and missile defense computers. The 50 missiles were not launched in a scattered pattern. They were fired in coordinated salvos from multiple dispersed sites, including road mobile transporter erector launchers positioned in hardened mountain tunnels. This dispersal tactic ensured that even if some launch positions were compromised, the majority could still deliver their payloads. Each warhead carried a high explosive payload, estimated between 200 and 500 kilograms, optimized for maximum impact against hardened or high-value targets. Iran had been developing this technology since the unveiling of the original Fattah in 2023. The Fattah-2 version incorporates improved guidance systems combining inertial navigation with possible mid-course updates, giving it enhanced accuracy over ranges of 1,400 to 1,500 kilometers. From Iranian territory, this places every major strategic site in Israel well within striking distance. As the missiles climbed rapidly through the atmosphere, their boosters separated and the hypersonic glide vehicles ignited. They accelerated into the hypersonic regime, turning into blazing, maneuverable projectiles that radar operators would struggle to track in real time. This was the moment Iran activated what many analysts now call its superweapon, a precision tool designed not just for retaliation, but to shatter the myth of absolute air superiority long held by its adversaries. In the control rooms buried deep underground, Iranian commanders monitored every phase with calm confidence. Years of sanctions, reverse engineering, and indigenous innovation had culminated in this exact capability, the ability to project overwhelming force across the region while evading the most advanced Western and Israeli interceptors. The 50 Fattah-2s were now streaking toward their primary objective, the political and symbolic center of Israel. The stage was set for one of the most daring hypersonic strikes in modern warfare. As the 50 Fattah-2 hypersonic glide vehicles accelerated into the upper atmosphere, Israeli and American early warning systems lit up with urgent alerts. Radar operators in underground command centers across Israel stared at their screens in disbelief. The incoming objects were moving at speeds that pushed the limits of existing tracking algorithms. Within seconds, the Integrated Air Defense Network, a fusion of Israeli and U.S. technologies, sprang into action. From positions near Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, batteries of Arrow, 3 interceptors roared skyward, followed by David's Sling and Iron Dome systems attempting to engage lower altitude threats. American warships in the eastern Mediterranean, equipped with Aegis combat systems, also contributed long-range SM-3 and SM-6 missiles in a desperate coordinated effort. The sky filled with streaks of defensive fire as operators tried to calculate intercept points for targets traveling at Mach 13 to 15 while executing unpredictable lateral maneuvers. Yet the Fattah-2s proved exceptionally difficult to pin down. Their glide vehicles repeatedly altered course and altitude during the terminal phase, creating a chaotic skip-glide pattern that forced defense computers to constantly recalculate. Several interceptors missed entirely, their warheads detonating harmlessly in empty airspace. Others achieved partial successes, but the sheer velocity and agility of the Iranian missiles allowed many to slip through the multi-layered shield. The primary targets were not random military bases. Iranian planners had chosen a highly symbolic and politically sensitive objective, the Knesset building in the Givat Ram government complex in western Jerusalem. Located on a prominent hilltop, the Knesset serves as the unicameral parliament of Israel, the seat where 120 elected members debate laws, oversee the government, and shape national policy. Striking here was a deliberate psychological blow aimed at the heart of Israeli democracy and governance. As the first wave of Fattah-2 warheads approached, chaos erupted in Jerusalem. Emergency sirens wailed across the city. Lawmakers, staff, and security personnel inside the Knesset building scrambled for cover. Sessions were abruptly halted mid-discussion as members rushed toward reinforced underground shelters. Security forces sealed entrances while overhead, the night sky flashed with explosions from both incoming missiles and attempted interceptions. Multiple warheads detonated in the vicinity of the government complex. While direct hits on the main Knesset structure remain under verification, the powerful blasts sent shockwaves through the area, shattering windows, damaging nearby administrative buildings, and igniting secondary fires. Thick columns of black smoke rose into the sky, visible for miles. The once orderly government district transformed into a scene of confusion and urgency. The effects quickly rippled westward toward Tel Aviv, Israel's bustling economic and cultural capital just 50 to 60 kilometers away. Although the Knesset lies in Jerusalem, the strike sent a wave of panic across the entire central region. In Tel Aviv, residents woke to the sound of secondary explosions and continuous air raid alerts. Plumes of smoke from fires near Jerusalem were visible on the horizon, casting an ominous glow over the Mediterranean coastline. Major roads leading out of the city jammed with vehicles as worried citizens sought safety. Ben Gurion International Airport temporarily suspended operations, and emergency services raced toward affected zones. This was more than a military strike, it was a calculated political statement. By targeting the symbolic center of Israeli legislative power, Iran demonstrated its ability to reach beyond conventional military installations and strike at the institutions that define the state. The psychological impact was immediate. Social media filled with images of smoke rising over government buildings, panicked lawmakers, and streets lit by emergency vehicle lights. For a nation that had long prided itself on superior intelligence and defensive capabilities, the breach represented a profound shock. Analysts note that even partial success against such a high-value target carries enormous weight. The Fattah-2's ability to maneuver at hypersonic speeds exposed critical vulnerabilities in current missile defense architectures. Systems designed primarily for slower ballistic threats or rockets struggled when confronted with agile, high-speed glide vehicles that could change direction dramatically in the final minutes of flight. As the last detonations echoed and the smoke continued to billow, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem burned not only with literal flames, but with a new sense of vulnerability. The strike had pierced the aura of invincibility that had surrounded Israel's defenses for decades. What had begun as a coordinated hypersonic barrage had now delivered a direct message to the Israeli government and its people. No center of power is truly beyond reach. The night was far from over, but the images of fire and chaos spreading across central Israel would dominate global headlines for days to come. The moment the Fattah-2 glide vehicles entered their terminal phase, the true scale of the crisis became painfully clear to every commander in the joint U.S.-Israeli operations room. What had been advertised for years as an impenetrable multi-layered shield suddenly began to unravel in real time. American and Israeli defense officials had placed absolute faith in a sophisticated network: Israel's Arrow 3 for exo-atmospheric intercepts, David's Sling for medium-range threats, Iron Dome for shorter-range rockets, and the United States Navy's Aegis-equipped destroyers positioned in the Mediterranean, providing additional long-range SM-3 and SM-6 support. Patriot batteries stationed across the region stood ready as backup. On paper, this was the most advanced integrated air and missile defense system on Earth. In practice, it was being overwhelmed. As the hypersonic vehicles screamed toward their targets at speeds exceeding Mach 14, the defense computers struggled to maintain accurate tracking. The Fattah-2's unpredictable maneuvers, sharp lateral shifts combined with rapid altitude changes, flooded the system with conflicting data. Radar returns became fragmented. Predictive algorithms, calibrated for more predictable ballistic arcs, failed to keep up with the constantly shifting trajectories. Operators watched in frustration as intercept windows shrank from minutes to mere seconds. Missile after missile was launched in response. Arrow, 3 batteries fired salvos costing tens of millions of dollars each. David's Sling systems joined the fray, followed by desperate launches from Iron Dome units that were never designed to handle threats moving at such extreme velocities. From American warships offshore, volleys of SM-3 Block IIA missiles streaked upward in a last-ditch attempt to engage the incoming glide vehicles before they descended too low. The result was chaos in the sky. Bright flashes of failed interceptions lit up the night as expensive defensive missiles either missed entirely or detonated too late. Several Fattah-2 vehicles slipped through the gaps, their warheads continuing toward the government district with terrifying precision. The sheer volume and sophistication of the Iranian barrage had forced the entire defense network into overload. In the command centers, the atmosphere shifted from professional calm to visible panic. Senior U.S. officers monitoring the joint feed could be heard urgently requesting more real-time satellite data and additional naval assets. Israeli air defense commanders issued rapid orders to reposition mobile launchers and prioritize protection of key military sites, even as civilian areas remained exposed. For the first time in this conflict, the phrase "we are losing coverage" was openly acknowledged across secure channels. What made the situation even more alarming was the economic reality playing out in real time. Each Arrow 3 interceptor carries a price tag of roughly $4 to $5 million. David Sling missiles cost nearly $1 million each. In contrast, even advanced Iranian hypersonic platforms, while expensive by Iranian standards, were being used in a way that forced the defenders to expend vastly more valuable munitions just to attempt a single intercept. The math was brutal and unsustainable. American support, once seen as the ultimate guarantee of Israeli security, suddenly looked strained. U.S. Navy ships increased their defensive posture, but their own systems were also being taxed by the speed and unpredictability of the threat. Reports indicate that several Aegis destroyers were forced to maneuver aggressively to avoid potential follow-on threats, creating the impression that even the most powerful naval force in the region was being pushed onto the defensive. This was the moment the illusion of absolute technological superiority cracked. For decades, Washington and Tel Aviv had projected an image of invincibility, a shield no adversary could pierce. Now live feeds and radar data were showing something entirely different. A highly touted defense architecture bending, then breaking, under the pressure of a new class of weapons. As the final detonations echoed across central Israel and smoke continued to rise over the government complex, commanders on both sides were forced to confront a harsh new reality. Their expensive layered missile defense systems, built at enormous cost and promoted as foolproof, had failed to stop a determined hypersonic salvo aimed at the political core of the country. The systems did not just struggle. In the eyes of millions watching around the world, they appeared to run scrambling, expending irreplaceable munitions, and ultimately yielding ground to a weapon they were never fully prepared to counter. The consequences of this collapse would extend far beyond a single night of fire and explosions. They would shake confidence in American security guarantees and force both nations to urgently reassess their entire approach to modern aerial warfare. The smoke had barely begun to clear over Jerusalem when the deeper strategic consequences of Iran's hypersonic strike started to reverberate far beyond the immediate battlefield. What happened in the early hours was not merely a tactical success, it was a calculated recalibration of power in the Middle East. For Israel, the strike delivered a profound psychological wound. The Knesset, long regarded as the untouchable symbol of Israeli sovereignty and democratic resilience, had been forced into chaos. Lawmakers who had routinely projected strength now found themselves fleeing to bunkers while the world watched. This single event shattered the long-held narrative that Israel's superior intelligence and technology could always keep the country safe from direct, high-impact attacks on its political core. Public confidence, already strained by prolonged conflict, began to erode further. Political commentators inside Israel openly questioned whether the current defense doctrine remained viable against emerging hypersonic threats. Economically, the damage extended well past the cost of damaged buildings. Global investors reacted nervously to footage of smoke rising over central Israel. The Tel Aviv Stock Exchange opened with sharp losses, while insurance premiums for regional operations spiked overnight. More critically, the strike exposed the unsustainable economics of missile defense. Israel and the United States had just expended hundreds of millions of dollars in interceptors in a matter of minutes, resources that cannot be quickly replaced. In a prolonged war of attrition, this imbalance threatened to drain both nations' arsenals faster than they could replenish them. For the United States, the implications were equally uncomfortable. Washington had repeatedly assured its closest ally of ironclad protection. Yet when the Fattah-2 penetrated the combined defense network, American systems proved unable to fully shield Israel. This visible limitation raised serious questions among allies across the region, from Saudi Arabia to the Gulf states, about the reliability of U.S. security commitments in an era of rapidly advancing adversary technology. Inside the Pentagon and the White House, officials faced growing pressure to explain why billions invested in missile defense had not delivered the promised impenetrable shield. The political fallout in Washington was immediate. Critics from both sides of the aisle demanded answers about the effectiveness of current U.S. strategy in the Middle East. Some voices called for a more restrained approach, arguing that unlimited support for escalation was dragging America deeper into a conflict with no clear exit. Others pushed for even greater military investment, insisting that only overwhelming technological superiority could restore deterrence. The strike had forced an uncomfortable national conversation about the limits of American power projection in the face of determined asymmetric capabilities. On the international stage, Iran emerged with significantly enhanced stature. By successfully demonstrating the reach and effectiveness of its hypersonic program, Tehran sent a clear message to every capital in the region. It possesses the tools to strike high-value targets despite the presence of advanced Western defenses. This achievement boosted morale domestically and strengthened Iran's negotiating position in any future diplomatic efforts. At the same time, it complicated the calculations of other regional actors who had previously relied on the assumption that Israel and the United States held unchallenged dominance in the air domain. Perhaps most significantly, the strike highlighted a broader shift in modern warfare. The era in which expensive, layered missile defenses could reliably neutralize threats from less technologically advanced opponents appears to be ending. Hypersonic weapons, with their combination of extreme speed and maneuverability, are rewriting the rules of engagement. Nations that once depended primarily on defensive systems must now confront the reality that offense, when executed with precision and resolve, can overcome even the most sophisticated protections. As analysts and policymakers begin to digest the full meaning of these events, one conclusion stands out. The balance of deterrence in the Middle East has tilted. Israel's aura of invulnerability has been dented. America's role as the ultimate security guarantor is being quietly reevaluated, and Iran has proven that sustained investment in asymmetric capabilities can yield strategic leverage far beyond its conventional military size. The 50 Fattah-2 missiles did more than damage buildings and challenge defenses. They forced every major player in the region to confront a new and uncomfortable truth. In the age of hypersonic warfare, no position of power is truly secure, and no defense system is truly absolute. As the fires continue to smolder over Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, one truth emerges sharper than any missile trail. Technology alone does not decide the outcome of wars. It is the will behind the weapon that ultimately matters. Iran has once again proven that a nation fighting with genuine national pride and a clear sense of purpose possesses an inner strength that borrowed power can never match. While Israel and the United States rely on expensive foreign-supplied systems and fragile alliances, Iran draws its strength from deep internal resolve, the unbreakable spirit of a people defending their sovereignty, dignity, and right to exist without submission. This is not merely a contest of missiles versus interceptors. It is a clash between authentic national will and borrowed hegemony. History has repeatedly shown that no amount of advanced hardware can overcome a determined nation ready to pay any price for its honor. Looking beyond the burning skyline, this single strike signals something far larger: the gradual collapse of the old unipolar order. The illusion of absolute American dominance in the Middle East is crumbling before our eyes. What we are witnessing is the painful birth of a new multipolar world, one where no single power can dictate terms unchallenged. In this shifting landscape, the roles of Russia and China grow more significant with each passing day. Both nations have watched carefully as Western technological superiority is challenged by determined resistance. Their growing influence, whether through diplomatic mediation, economic partnerships, or strategic cooperation, is accelerating the move toward a world where power is distributed rather than concentrated in Washington. The age of unchallenged hegemony is ending. The belief that one superpower and its closest ally could reshape entire regions through superior firepower and financial pressure has been exposed as a dangerous fantasy. True strength in the 21st century will belong not to those who possess the most expensive weapons, but to those who combine technological progress with unbreakable national spirit and strategic patience. The strike of 50 Fattah-2 missiles was more than an attack on a parliament building. It was a declaration that the era of impunity is over. Nations that once believed they could act without consequence must now face a new reality, one defined by resistance, dignity, and the rise of a truly multipolar world. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on the rapidly changing global order. The fire that began in the Middle East may soon reshape the entire world. We will see you in the next report.